In today's video, we bring you the movie, Multiplicity. In this story, a man duplicates himself because he finds it difficult to balance his work and his family, but his clones make a real mess of things. Let's see what happens at the end. Doug Kinney works at a construction company and he drives to the location of a project only to find that his team has started building a driveway in the wrong place. A man named Vic says no refund can be made for the blunder, so a frustrated Doug plans to construct both driveways to avoid a lawsuit. Doug's boss Del King finds out about the mistake and announces that the owner of the wrong driveway has threatened to sue the company. Doug volunteers to handle the situation, but Del points out that Doug has another unfinished job. Doug goes home to his wife Laura and kids, and Laura scolds him for being irresponsible and negligent. Doug excuses himself saying he's overworked and he is to be replaced at office soon. Laura thinks it's a promotion, but Doug says that he's supposed to do extra work without a raise. The following morning, Laura gets an offer from her old working place, but Doug isn't happy. Who will look after the kids when both of them are away? Laura and Doug get into a small fight on this issue, and Doug leaves the house with an unresolved problem. Back at a construction site, Doug breaks a water pipe and messes up all the work. A supervisor named Dr. Leeds sees how overworked Doug is and offers to have a chat about his problems and support him to change his life. Doug shares his troubles with Dr. Leeds, explaining that he's torn between work and being there for his family. Dr. Leeds says that he can create clones of him and that will offer a solution to his problem. Doug obviously thinks it's a joke and gets up to leave. Then Dr. Leeds clarifies that he's a geneticist and is pretty good at making duplicates of people. He says that he just managed to clone himself last year. Suddenly another Dr. Leeds walks in and shakes Doug's hand. Convinced, Doug prepares for the procedure and notices that Leeds' assistant is also cloned. As Doug is feeling quite anxious, Leeds sedates him and hours later, Doug is successfully cloned, but now they can't figure out who the real Doug is. Finally, Leeds shows that the cloned Doug has number 2 engraved on the back of his ear. That afternoon, Doug drives back home with 2 and he plans to have the clone live in the guest house. The two Dougs talk about setting up plans to work together. They almost get caught to Doug's family, but Doug smoothens the situation, promising to spend more time with the kids. The next day, 2 goes to work early and finishes his tasks before the boss arrives. This leaves his coworkers dumbfounded, and his boss Del is impressed. But just then, Doug walks in and confuses the office secretary. He realizes that 2 is already at office, so he says he just went back to his car to get some stuff. Doug then calls 2 and explains that the whole point of him going to work is to give Doug more time to spend with family. 2 assures that he's checked on all their projects, leaving Doug with nothing to do. So Doug becomes the family man, while 2 takes care of work. Later, when Laura gets home with the kids, she is surprised to see Doug cooking dinner. When the kids leave to wash up, Laura accuses Doug of getting fired, saying that's why he has extra time, but Doug claims that he threatened to quit, so Del hired someone to assist him. Doug then encourages Laura to get her job back, which makes her happy. The next day, Vic is late to arrive at work, so 2 fires him and drags him out. While working, Laura calls 2 to ask him to pick up the kids from school and take Jennifer to ballet class. Doug is playing golf when 2 calls him to do the tasks. Doug tries to prepare Jennifer for ballet classes but messes up her dress and hair. He then drags the kids to the ballet class. That evening, while Doug juggles housework, the kids start fighting. He yells at them and scares them into getting to bed. After a month, Doug takes Laura on a date to a fancy restaurant. A heated conversation rises between the couple as Doug argues that he has less time for himself since he's been running around with housework, and Laura fires back saying that she was in that position for years. On a nearby table, 2 is on a date with his coworker, Noreen. He claims that his wife is cheating on him to get sympathy from Noreen. When they get up to leave, Doug and 2 notice each other, so 2 quickly hides behind the table. 2 then heads to the men's room and Doug follows him. 2 claims that he's there on business with Noreen, but Doug doesn't buy it. Doug is tired of taking care of the kids and asks 2 if they can switch roles. Suddenly the host walks in, so Doug dumps 2's face in the sink. Doug then tells 2 to slip out with Noreen while he distracts Laura. However, Noreen finds Doug when he comes out. Noreen spots Laura from a distance, so they both sit with other people to hide. Meanwhile, 2 comes out, and Laura spots him, so he pretends to be Doug. 2 kisses Laura, giving Doug and Noreen a chance to leave. One night, 2 finds out that Doug has cloned himself again, and now there's a 3 in the picture. 2 is pissed, but Doug explains that 3 will help with housework while also being 2's friend and roommate. With 2 clones at work, Doug finally gets to have some me time. That evening, Doug sneaks back home late at night and slips into bed with Laura, only to realize that 3 is already in bed with her. They accidentally wake up Laura and Doug quickly hides. Later, Doug scolds 3 for sleeping next to Laura and accuses him of getting intimate with her, but 3 assures that nothing happened. Then Doug stresses that neither clone can sleep with his wife. One night, Doug wakes up and finds 2 and 3 dancing with women. The women see Doug, and the idea of triplets excite them, but Doug urges them to leave, and the women leave in dismay. Doug then yells at 2 and they start arguing. 3 calms him down and offers him a Tylenol. On his way to get Tylenol, Doug comes across another clone much to his surprise. Finally, he meets 4. 4 is literally a man-child and acts stupid, since he is a clone of a clone. 2 and 3 give an explanation, but Doug is already mad and says they shouldn't be making any more clones. The next day, Walt, Doug's sailing instructor, offers Doug the boat to take his wife out on a romantic date. Meanwhile, Laura becomes skeptical about Doug's sudden change. Doug then switches places with 3 while Laura isn't looking. Laura brings up a discussion they had before, not knowing she discussed it with 3 instead. Doug pretends to know about it and lets her make the final decision so he can escape the topic, but the discussion turns into a fight. Doug unsuccessfully tries to distract her by suggesting sailing, but fails. Doug heads to the guest house to announce that he'll be going away for a few days, so he assigns 3 to be himself for the next few days. He instructs 3 to pretend to be sick and avoid getting close to Laura. Doug then goes sailing but ends up having a horrible time as he gets seasick. While at home, the night takes a spicy turn when Laura tries to seduce 3. 3 pretends to be sick, but Laura seems to be pretty determined, so 3 ends up getting intimate with Laura. Afterwards, Laura leaves to grab a snack. Meanwhile, 2 enters the house to grab a snack and walks in on Laura eating in the kitchen. Laura, who is still in a sexy mood, seduces 2 despite his refusal. Moments later, a storm brews outside and this scares 4, so he heads inside the house and bumps into Laura. Seeing 4, she thinks that 2 got drenched in the rain, so she changes his clothes in the bathroom while 3 hides in the shower. Seeing him get aroused, Laura takes 4 to bed for another round of intimacy. Meanwhile at the harbor, Doug misses his old life. The next day, 2 gets sick, so 3 calls Dell to excuse him from work. However, Dell points out that they can't get the building inspected for another month if he doesn't come in. Dell threatens to fire him, so 3 goes instead. Since 3 knows nothing about the project, he calls 2 to answer some questions, but his answers are pretty screwed up, so the project is put on hold. Annoyed, Dell fires 3. Finding out that 3 messed up, 2 gets into a tantrum and lets it out on Laura, and Laura gives him a slap. Later, Laura finds 4 in the garage and confronts him about his weird behavior. She then questions Doug's love for her. 4, who is very confused, keeps being stupid and asks for pizza. Soon, Doug arrives home but finds all 3 clones sitting in his living room. They tell Doug that Laura left with the kids. 2 confesses that he got into a fight with Laura because he was pissed about losing the job. 2 points out that he got fired because 3 didn't answer the questions properly. Then 3 confesses that all of them slept with Laura. With his life ruined, Doug is at a loss for words. 4 says that Laura is unhappy about Doug not solving any family issues. Doug then gets together with the 3 clones and starts to fix and renovate the house. Doug asks 3 if Laura seemed to prefer 3 over him, but 3 assures that Laura loves Doug. Doug then realizes that he was never there for his wife and kids when they needed him the most, so he goes to Laura's parents' house to meet her, and the kids are so excited to see him. Laura initially refuses to sort out things with Doug, but seeing that Doug has learned to see her side of the story, she agrees to go back to their house. Laura is stunned to see the house fixed, and seeing her happy, 2 and 3 have a quiet celebration. Doug then suggests that he can start his own contracting business, so he can manage his time in a better way, and Laura agrees with happy tears. Doug seizes the chance to ensure his love to her and promises her a steady life. A couple of days later, the 3 clones plan to move away and figure out their lives on their own. The clones are worried about how Doug is going to manage, but he assures that he'll be alright. The clones and Doug part ways, and they end up stopping next to Laura's car in town. She spots the 3 Dougs and gets confused, but guess what? She shakes away the feeling and reminds herself about her husband's love. Time passes and 3 writes to Doug to say that they've opened a successful pizza restaurant in Miami, 2 is happy to meet people vacationing there, and 3 enjoys being the chef, and our happy-go-lucky man 4 delivers newspapers and pizzas which he occasionally mixes up. This movie reminds us that it's not easy being the perfect person who multitasks in real life, well, unless you have a couple of clones to save your ass at the end of the day. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and comment the movie you want us to recap next.